Welcome to the AtlantECO podcast, where we talk about the science behind the AtlantECO project, the Atlantic Ocean, and the human adventures experienced along the way. Here, we have conversations with guests from around the world who work together so that we can better understand, manage, and protect the ocean. So let's embark on the journey of AtlantECO and discover the world that lies above and beneath the surface of the beautiful Atlantic Ocean. Welcome back to the AtlantECO podcast. In today's show, we're speaking with Sebastian Villsante to learn more about the social, economic, and cultural aspects that are important to study and understand to better manage the ocean, its resources, and the services provided by marine ecosystems. Welcome to the podcast, Sebastian.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
So before we get into the deep of the subject of today's episode, we like to get to know the story of our guests. So maybe, Sebastian, can you tell us about you, what inspired you to do what you do today, and how you got here?
I am basically, has been since I was a child, I was basically inspired by my Spanish family, Spanish grandparents who emigrated from Spain to South America, basically to work, most of them on the sea. That is my inspiration based on the past, and based on the present and in the future, I am inspired by to work to try to better improve the current state of our ocean and the planet for us as a generation, but also for our kids and our next generations to come who dream for a better world as us.
Definitely. So can you tell us what it is that you do today and what your work involves?
What I currently doing, I am professor of economics and also researcher at the Department of Applied Economics at the University of Santiago de Compostela in Spain, in northwest of Spain. I am also currently the director of the Equalsea Lab, which is a large project funded by the European Research Council for a consolidator grant to develop a project which is Equalsea, a transformative adaptation toward ocean equity. And we are an interdisciplinary research group involving biologists, ecologists, social scientists, political scientists, try to better understand and analyze what are the key factors that are fostering or undermining the achievement of the oceans toward ocean equity in the different transformative change initiatives around the world. Particularly, I see myself as an interdisciplinary scientist, basically interested in understanding the role of marine biodiversity and fisheries and aquaculture resources for human well-being, for people, basically, and also as well as to try to better understand how we, as a society, including science, industry, NGOs, as well as governments, we are able to foster positive, transformative change of marine social ecological system. And within our lab, we are currently developing several theoretical frameworks, methods, as well as tools to improve equitable distribution of ocean benefits. And also we are committed to develop capacity building for governments as well as for the private sector on how they can really develop concrete actions to foster transformative change. And also I am actively involved in international as well as regional initiatives that bridge science and policy, providing advice, scientific advice to governments, the fishery sectors, as well as the NGOs. And for example, I am currently one of the co-leader author of the chapter about visions for nature and people of the IP-based global assessment for transformative change that is expected to be delivered in 2024. And we are involved more than 200 authors around the world to try to conduct the most comprehensive assessment on how we can achieve and develop positive and desirable transformative change for the planet and people.
Wow, that is a big ambition and some interesting work there. Can you tell us how you got involved in the AtlantECO project?
Yes, I'm really excited we are, the whole group, we are really excited to be involved in the AtlantECO project because it's really ambitious, but also really timely and necessary to develop the proposed tasks and objectives that has been developing. And basically, I was involved through the kind invitation of other colleagues, like, for example, Dr. Simone Librarato from Italy, from the National Institute of Oceanography and Applied Geophysics, and also by our coordinator of the AtlantECO project, Dr. Daniele Ludiconi. They have been developing, in my view, a very solid research proposal, and they asked me to develop research or conduct research on economic as well as sociocultural valuation of marine ecosystem services in the whole Atlantic, but in particularly focusing in the northwest of Atlantic here in Galicia, as well as in West Africa, in cooperation with Professor Francesco Bosello from the Euro-Mediterranean Center of Climate Change in Italy.
Very good. The episode today is to talk about social, economic and cultural aspects that need to be considered to help us better understand and manage the marine ecosystems and all of the services that they provide. So can you tell us about what these are and why it is so important to study them?
That is a good point. Firstly, I would like to share a basic background which help us to understand why we are committed to work on these topics for the whole Atlantic Ocean. Right? Firstly, that we have been dramatically changed the state of marine ecosystems in the planet over the last 4 or 5 decades, especially. Today, we humans are the largest single driving force determining the state of the planet, meaning also determining the outcome for the planet. In our case, delivering fishery results and production of aquaculture, for example. If you look at any indicator which is related to the state of the oceans, several studies are already indicating that, for example, overfishing, plastic in the oceans, concentration of fishing rights, and especially inequality of ocean benefits are progressively increasing, are growing over time. And in particular, the frog production is the most fundamental factor of the outcome of the state of the oceans right now. And in relation to your question on why we are studying marine ecosystem services, well, ecosystem services are basically the ecological characteristics, process, and functions that basically contribute to human well-being by providing different benefits and values. And for us, it is really key to understand and to study marine ecosystem services because, for example, the food production and the ecosystem health are intrinsically connected. In that regard, well, the oceans provide us not only food, but also other type of ecosystem services like recreational activities or cultural services such as, for example, sense of place, which are key for our physical and also cognitive health. For example, the dramatic COVID-19 that all of the planet has been suffering, there are some studies that already demonstrated that people who were able to interact with healthy ocean and with healthy coast during the pandemic have been showing lower stress, and they were showing higher propensity to pass the impact of the pandemic in a more healthy way compared to other type of communities around the world.
Wow, this is really interesting to understand, how being near the ocean maybe or interacting with a healthy ocean can have such an impact on us, in our daily life. Really interesting.
Yeah, in that sense also, I would say what we know as an ocean economy or as a blue economy that international agencies, scholars and governments are increasingly be interested is to find new opportunities for exploitation of, let's say, fishery resources or aquaculture resources or other type of marine uses that the oceans could provide to us as humans. In that regard, I think the good news is that all of the scholars and governments and international agencies are increasingly focusing on the need to pay attention to the importance of the oceans, which is a very important news. But at the same time, we also need to be careful because we need to develop plans and policies to foster the potential of the ocean, but not only to focus on the economic growth, but rather by focusing on the need to conserve and rebuild marine life as the basis for sustainable oceans and equitable uses for people, as stated by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, that all of us and all of the governments, we need to achieve by 2030.
Yeah, so it's not only understanding and using the information about financial, value of what the ocean can provide, but all of the other benefits and all of the other impacts on human life as well. And maybe to bring this into the context of AtlantECO, how are we studying these aspects and what are we trying to learn, and how will this knowledge be then used?
Well, here in AtlantECO, from our research lab, basically we are trying to study this aspect in three, I would say, conceptual and operational ways. The first one is to use a tool, an international tool that has been already tested in several parts of the world, which is the Ocean Health Index. And the Ocean Health Index is probably the most comprehensive framework used to measure ocean health from global to local scales. And it has been developed by researchers at the University of Santa Barbara and in the US, and in collaboration with them, because they are part of the AtlantECO project, we are conducting the first independent assessment here in Galicia, in the northwest of Spain, to really know which are the current state, pressures and resilience of the different marine ecosystem services through our coast. That is the first way that we are investigating and studying marine ecosystem services in AtlantECO project. And the second one, and in relation to this, is that we are also using citizen science to develop probably the most participatory process conducted in Europe and in Spain to understand how the general public interact with the Galician marine coastal space. For example, how the population perceive the health of the ocean where people live, and what type of mitigation or transformative measures or actions are necessary to tackle or to reduce such threats they consider the most important, like, for example, overfishing, pollution, reduce of the water quality, for example. And in my view, this participatory process with the whole Galician population will help us, not only us, but also people in Galicia, to trust in the results and therefore engage in them during the whole process. And also, finally, the third way or the third key work that we are conducting in the AtlantECO project is that we are developing value chain assessment in two sites under different social ecological contexts. One of them is localized in the West Africa, focuses on small-scale fisheries, and the other one here as well in Galicia, in the northwest of Spain, on using the mussel aquaculture industry as a case study, which is, as we know, the most important aquaculture production in the whole European Union. We found the commonality in two of these case studies, which are that they are sharing similar drivers such as impact of climate change as well as microplastics. And in my view, I think that this research is really important in the context not only for AtlantECO but also for the whole Atlantic, because it provides a richer evidence base, and it's also perceived as more salient and legitimate because we are involving stakeholders and different actors with the different tasks that we are committed to develop. In my view, through this research, we will also be able to better understand first at the scientific level, not only the status, but also the resilience of marine ecosystem services, including key resources here as well as in West Africa, which are small-scale fisheries resources and aquaculture, but also at policy level, because we are developing a portfolio of solutions for policymakers to take science-based and more robust decisions for the users. And in my view, this new knowledge will be expected to develop a more pluralistic, not only focus on economics, but also on other type of values that people can consider relevant, for the life, but also practical and action-oriented ways to engage different stakeholders and also disciplines in the face of shared sustainability challenge.
Yeah, really interesting and a challenging task. Can't wait to see the results and hopefully to be able to share them along the way. We will have some episodes that will explain more deeply about ecosystem services, because we've been mentioning them in a few podcasts already. So we will explain ecosystem services, but also the concept of how we measure the health of the ocean and the Ocean Health Index that you've been mentioning here. So Sebastian, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insights on the episode, which introduced the social, economic and cultural aspects, which are so crucial to help us improve the way we understand and manage the marine resources and the services they provide, those ecosystems provide. As I said, we will have more episodes that go into greater level of detail on some of the aspects that we've covered today. So if you want to know more about that, make sure to check for those episodes to come. And again, thank you very much for your time today, Sebastian.
Thanks to you. My pleasure.
We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode and look forward to seeing you next time. You can follow the AtlantECO project on our website on www.atlanteco.eu, and you can also find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. All the links and information on the project and on today's episode is in the show notes.